Welcome, anime lovers, to my journey to find the worst anime series ever created. The bottom of the barrel. The one that makes you question your life decisions. The one that smells like a Smash player just walked by you after an all-nighter. The rules are as follows. I watch the worst anime recommended by you guys and whatever I can find online. I watch the entire series and judge it on three main criteria: story and world building, characters and development, animation quality and voice acting, while also providing some background and personal thoughts on the potential cause for the anime's downfall. What better place to start than everyone's favorite streaming service, VRV? What? VRV no longer exists? Okay, what about Funimation? Gone too, huh? Damn, Sony Entertainment is not playing in the anime game. They throw around that monopoly money. So what's left then? That's right, the monopoly that is CrunchyRoll. It took some time to find the worst rated anime on CrunchyRoll, but we are going to start with a CrunchyRoll original and one of the lowest rated anime ever to grace CrunchyRoll, High Guardian Spice. Now, full disclosure, I had never heard of this anime before making this video, but when I googled the worst anime on CrunchyRoll, this came up a lot. Now, while it isn't actually an anime because it is American animated, we're still going to count it because it is on CrunchyRoll. I'm not going to read any of the reviews and form my own opinions and judge it that way. My thoughts aren't altered by others. I'll include some of the other reviews towards the end of this video once I have watched the entire series. With an average rating of just under 2 stars with over 10,000 ratings, I can see that many people did not have great opinions of this anime. High Guardian Spice was created by Ray Rodriguez, a former character designer for Danger and Eggs, another animated project including LGBTQ representation. It was initially planned to be Crunchyroll's first original series, but a delay of about 2 years prevented that from happening. I did a lot of research and I could not find the exact reason for the many delays, but I'm assuming the C-19 had something to do with it. It's really hard to find any legitimate reasons for the massive delays and the big gap in the finished product being released. I stumbled upon a blog during my research called the High Guardian Spice Archive, a blog dedicated to the history and production of High Guardian Spice. The blog contains an extensive list of important milestones, including the creator's history, along with the first pictures of Rosemary and the gang as long ago as 2013. The girls remain very similar to their original appearance, but time would go on to be changed drastically. And I mean the character Time, who I'll talk about later. A few years later, in 2018, Ray would pitch the series to Crunchyroll and get greenlit for an original series originally planned to release in early 2019, but many delays would keep that from happening. High Guardian Spice, or HGS, which is what I'm going to call it now because I'm about tired of saying it, will be completed in the fall of 2019, according to a tweet made by the series creator, although not without a nest of problems. The crazy part about this is that there was absolutely no communication from Crunchyroll on the release date. 2 years would pass until any more information was given. Crunchyroll would then go on to release 11 Crunchyroll originals before HGS would even be released in October of 2021. They released 11 originals before the one that was originally planned to be the first one would release. That's insane to me. HGS has a violence and strong language warning which states it is not intended for children and mature audiences only. This got me a little hopeful before diving in. Those hopes would soon be shattered, as aside from some minor blood, there isn't much to warn about. Apparently this is because Crunchyroll demanded that the creators try to gear the show more towards adults. For what reason, I couldn't tell you. After episode 2, my Crunchyroll crashed, telling me I should go no further. For the sake of science, I pressed on. And now let's get into the setting for HGS is actually pretty straightforward. It's a fantasy world where monsters and magic exist. Sword and sorcery. Different races from centaurs, elves, dwarves, demons, and others. The world is relatively bright and peaceful overall, but has its dangers in the form of monsters and dark organizations using magic for nefarious purposes. The world is, in short, protected by guardians. A guardian is a general term, but it defines anyone who is willing to put their life on the line to stand up for what they believe in and want to protect. Not everything that each guardian wants to protect is the same, but the theme of the show reflects that overall guardians are the good guys, and at the head of the good guys are the Triad, probably the most interesting character and funniest in my opinion in the show. HGS tries to keep things simple, but we aren't given any other plot points until like episode 6. After episode 7, we finally learn more about the real villains. We start to see the overarching mystery and plot points, about affecting the trees and the declining level of magic in the earth, the existence of the triumvirate, evil group behind the scenes, evil equivalent to the Triad. Spoilers aside, I can't help but feel most of the problems could have been solved if the girls had just talked to the Triad about the issues they were facing and got help. The Triad are the head of the academy, who I assume to be the most powerful character introduced in the show. The magic system introduced is also very straightforward and simple, could have been explained and developed on it a bit better. All you need to know for now is that magic exists in 2 forms, old magic and new magic. Old magic uses the body to conjure magic from the earth, though there is a cost and requires manually drawing the runes to complete the casting. New magic uses weapons and crystals known as terraspheres as catalysts, requiring much less knowledge to use than old magic. The downside being that terraspheres have a limited magical capacity and the lack of knowledge can make them dangerous in the wrong hands. The main issue I had with the magical system is the extent of what it is capable of was never fully explained. For example, in episode 9, Olive uses the sphere of new magic containing a spell that can petrify anyone in its radius. A big ass radius at that. And this magic requires no real skill to use. However, in episode 11, the girls are unable to use healing magic to heal the Scythe before it could die. But there isn't really much else to say, so let's move on to the animation is a bit rough around the edges. Things are kind of stiff, and I sometimes find myself looking at the background for some reason. One review that I will go over actually later explains this. Considering the budget on this, I am not surprised. Some of the animation is less fluid than what you would typically expect of an animated series released in the 2020s. The series creator Ray weighs in on this with a tweet stating, HTS had a very small budget. We are the first show of a non-union studio. If you're mad at the animation quality, it was the budget, background, writing, budget. We literally started storyboarding the first episode before the first script was finished. So when we inevitably ran into problems, all productions do, we didn't have the time or money to slow down and fix them. We had to barrel forward and make do with what we had. High Guardian Spice reminds me of a new age cartoon without the budget to back it up. A pink-haired character named Rose with a happy disposition instantly gave me Steven Universe vibes. The two cannot be compared. This is definitely not a MAPPA project, let's put it at that. I can't help but feel that despite my best efforts to avoid all the bad reviews, that I went into this looking for something bad to find, unfortunately. The voice acting is bad. After some research, it is clear that most of the voice actors were amateurs, and this may have been their first project. Aside from some of the main cast, the side characters' voice acting feels like it takes a major backseat. Again, I think the budget was at work here. If I had to make a decision, I would focus on the main cast as well. When certain characters would speak, I would actively do my best to not listen. I'm looking at you, Slimeboy and Parnell. Trust me, there are many more than that, but yeah, it's bad.
I am Slimeboy.
Now we're gonna jump into Rosemary, Sage, Parsley, and Thyme are the main characters of the story, and each is supposed to represent a specific type of trope. Rose is the happy, optimistic character, Sage the serious and studious, Parsley is outgoing and probably the most balanced of the group, and Thyme is the serious, stoic, sarcastic girl. Kind of like a Great Value Raven from Teen Titans. Each one of the girls fills a different character role. They kind of are successful in a way, but only with some of the characters. I felt that only Rose was able to successfully and loosely fulfill her character role, but unlike similar characters, I kind of found her annoying at times. Rose in the beginning takes most things as a joke, and her sword skills leave a lot to be desired. However, when episode 9 rolls around and her friends are in danger, her joking side is tossed aside for a more action-oriented character. She chases down Olive without thinking and is able to fight her and wound her pretty badly. Even her fight with Mandrake later on is impressive, as she is able to take the leadership role, giving orders to the girls in dangerous situations, and even coming up with a good game plan to counter his shape-shifting abilities. Something I was actually impressed by, Rose grows even further in episode 11, titled The Scythe, where she volunteers to perform a mercy kill on a creature so that it doesn't die in pain or suffer. This shocked me, and there is no way you would think that Rose from the beginning of the series would be capable of this. Sage starts off as shy in the beginning. She is very obviously uncomfortable when she is separated from Rose. There's some development here, and she is able to become more able to voice her own opinions and overcome her dilemma with new magic versus old magic, make her own choices. Thyme starts out being a character that is very visibly dislikes Rose, as she thinks she's, well, an idiot. She wants to be left alone and rarely speaks, and is extremely introverted. She has trouble expressing her emotions and often chooses to refrain from saying anything at all. She begins to trust the other girls as the series progresses and they take on more challenges. She is determined to save her home, and she even attempts to summon a demon to do so. Parsley is ultimately the one I credit with bringing Thyme more out of her shell, though she still retains some of her more introverted traits, which is realistic to expect. Parsley is my favorite of the four, a small dwarf who aspires to be a blacksmith. She is the only female in her family of many brothers and shoulders the weight of her parents' expectations for her to help raise them. She struggles with wanting to live her own life and helping her parents. Parsley is able to quickly grow from this and tells her parents how she feels. I find her the most balanced personality-wise of the four girls, and I'm not sure if that's how it's supposed to be. She often stops arguments and does her best to make sure everyone gets along. She doesn't really fall into any specific type of trope, which is why I ended up liking her, and I'm not sure if that was done on purpose or not, but it worked out. Most of the character development happens in episode 10 across the board, but it takes so long for the characters to take steps forward, but on the same side they do, which is pretty good. Some of the steps seemed rushed on some of the characters, while there's almost no significant growth in others. I mean, I've seen some anime where the characters never change, so that's not saying much. Having characters show meaningful growth is not an easy thing to do in 12 episodes, so kudos. Now I've dragged on long enough, and it's time to come to the... Considering this was originally planned to be the flagship for CrunchyRoll Originals, I'm disappointed in the overall product and CrunchyRoll for dragging their feet to release the finished product. There are many other CrunchyRoll Originals that I would recommend over this one: Inspector, Tower of God, God of High School, rushed mess that it was, Noblesse, among others. That being said, problems ultimately end up being a small budget, amateur voice actors, bad pacing, lack of any real threats until over halfway through the series. Considering the constant delays, I would have assumed that they would have used the extra time to polish up this anime, but again, that takes more money. The same problems happen in video games. Most of the time when things get pushed back multiple times, deeper in the hole it can become, the more money that gets sank into it. We may never hear Crunchyroll's official part of the story, and that's unfortunate. I think trying to tackle a new arena for LGBTQ to be one of the first major animations to cast them in a positive light, this could have been handled with more care. People have to understand that there was no way the studios or writers would get it perfect. It's bound to have mistakes, as all anime does. All anime has its contradictions, bad tropes, trouble with writing, pacing, just a part of the game. Looking at some of the titles some people's YouTube channels have, you would think that this show is the worst thing that's ever been produced. Newsflash, it's not. I actually enjoyed episode 9, 10, and 12 quite a bit. To no surprise, those were the ones with the fight scenes. The action, when we got some, is actually not that bad. I actually remember the fights which stand out. Rose vs. Olive, episode 9. Particularly the use of the black and white during one of the frames was a nice touch. Time and Parsley versus the Demon, where Time does some cold ass execution type stuff on the demon. Setting and music choices very well done here. Episode 10. The Girls vs. Mandrake in episode 12 also. I think HGS was the product of a hate it before watching it mentality that's become increasingly popular in the last couple of years. People wrote it off before the show was even able to be released and labeled it as bad from the small trailer with barely any context to it. Truly unfortunate, but is this the worst anime I've ever seen? No, it's not even close. As this is the first one in the series, it will sit on the throne until the next one. I am placing High Guardian Spice in the didn't totally hate it but would not watch again tier list. This anime was not great, but not nearly the kind of BS nonsense I'm looking for. I mean, at the end of the day, this anime has Travers, and I want one, so it can't be all that bad. You agree with my tier list placing for HGS? Where would you have ranked it? Like the video? Consider subscribing and commenting down below to help me on my journey to crown the king of the worst anime ever created. Before we go, take some time and read the reviews for yourself though. I always say it's better to watch and form your own opinion. For the many that hate on this project, there are those that love it and eagerly await another season. Unfortunately, that day may never come.